Let's
This
get started
conference
out
will
here.
now be recorded.
All right. So in yesterday's session, we were mostly looking at how to create a SaaS token at a container level versus a blob level versus a storage account level. So you have three different layers out here, wherein you can go ahead and create your SaaS token out there. And we've also seen why do you would like to create, let's say, SaaS token at a blob level. The reason here being the storage account container may be in a private access level. So to access your blobs, you need to, let's say, go and create a shared access signature. If you have multiple blobs in the same container, then the concept of shared access tokens that you generate at, let's say, a container comes into picture. If you have multiple containers, then Azure also allows you to go ahead and create a SaaS token at the storage account level. So if you generate the SaaS token at the storage account level, you will have access to all the containers under the storage account. If you generate the SaaS token at a container level, you will have access to all the blobs under the same container out here as such. And we are using a software called Storage Explorer or Microsoft Storage Explorer to go ahead and, let's say, access our blobs, access our containers using the shared access signature, or you can directly sign in into your, let's say, storage. If you have a particular role, you can just go ahead and sign in out here as such. And yesterday's session, I have concluded by asking you all to read what is the difference between a shared access signature versus an access key on the storage. And today I said that I'll be explaining this out. So yes, did anyone do the reading? Did anyone look at what is the difference between a shared access signature and an access key, and what do you understand by that? Yes, anyone?
By using an access key,
Hmm.
when we provide the keys,
Hmm.
they can access. They have the full rights
Okay.
by using an access key. When we go with
Okay.
an SAS, we
Hmm.
can able to limit the access.
Good point. Great point. That's correct. When you go with
And
an access key, good, please.
difference between these things, when we go with access keys, here we need to rotate the password,
Okay,
and
rotate the
here we
passwords.
can make it
Mhm.
provide in a limited hours, limited days. Compared to access keys, SAS
Mhm.
is better. And
SA is better. SA is more secure. That's correct. That's absolutely put in a very right way. Is that access keys? You have two different authentication techniques out here. Not actually two, three different authentication techniques. One being identity and access management. You can directly give a control to someone without, let's say, sharing the access keys and etc. In cases, you can use something called as access keys and a shared access signature. Two other different kind of techniques, authentication techniques out here to override the existing override the existing rule based access controls out there. Uh, Yesterday we were looking into something called shared access signature. So if you go into a shared access signature, you go into a shared access signature, it's going to tell you what kind of an access you need, whether you want to, let's say, give a read, or whether you want to give a write, or whether you want to give a delete, or whether you want to do a list, add, create, what it is. So it's going to tell you what exactly that you can, or what exactly the user who's using this particular key can have a control on. And it also gives you a start and an end time, telling for how long is this particular token that you generated is valid for. But in scenarios wherein you need an administrative control, there are often scenarios where, let's say, a project manager would come to you and say, you know what, I need this key, I want an administrative control, or this is a developmental storage account wherein my developers wherein my developers are going ahead and using this particular storage account to test their application, to see how their application reacts and all that stuff, for which you have something called keys. Same like shared access signatures only, it'll give you access to your storage account, but it'll give you a full right to your storage account, as someone said, right? It's a full rights. meaning it's like an administrative control, admin access to your storage account. So if you give this key to someone, let's say I give this key to myself. So in order to give this, I'll say show. So I have a key, or if you say show, you have a connection string, anything is okay. So let's say I'll take the key. Yesterday I took the connection string, today I'll take the key, I copy this out. In order to access this, let me go into something called as Microsoft Storage Explorer out here, and it will load this particular software called Microsoft Storage Explorer. And here it's going to ask me what do you want to connect to and etc. So again, I have my storage accounts. Yesterday I connected one. I'll remove this out. I have to right click here and detach this out, and then I'll reattach a new storage account today. So let me detach this one. Okay, I'll take some time. Fine, I'll detach it in a minute. Let me go ahead, click on this. I'll say storage account or the service, and here it's asking me what kind of let's say authentication method you want to go for. I will say, you know what, I have a key, so I'll go with account name and the key. I'll say next, and firstly I'll paste the key here. So the key is something that I got from, let's say, the administrator. The key is something that I got from the Azure portal. I'll say account name. I'll just go to the account name out here. I'll copy this account name, paste it here. I can have the same display name for my account name also. Like the display name and the account name can be same. Display name is something that you can give. It's just for your own convention. And I'll say next, and I'll say connect. So now what I'm doing is that I'm now connecting to this particular, let's say, storage account using a key right now, which gives me access to all the containers. Firstly, under the storage account, whatever containers that you have. Now I have a test container as a part of yesterday's demo. I created a test container out here, which has a couple of blobs inside it. So I'll have access to all the containers within this particular storage account. I'll have all the blobs, and I have an administrative control, which means that if I come here, uh, click on, let's say, delete, it says, are you sure you want to delete this? I'll say yes. It will now allow me to go ahead and delete, write, read, upload, do all the administrative actions out here. Now, if you see, it's telling this is deleting, and now you do not have that particular blob called sample one. If you even go back to my Azure portal, this will get reflected in the real time. So if I go into test container out here, I don't have that particular blob anymore. It's just got deleted out here as such. So this is how, or this is the major difference between a shared access signature and an access key, wherein access keys do not let you control something. They give you a full privilege, and in an access key, you cannot mention what is the time for which the key is really valid for. The key is literally valid forever. It will give you it will give you a full control till the time that you have it. So we have to be very careful while sharing an access key. It's always a preferred method to go ahead and share the shared access signatures. It's a best method to go ahead and, let's say, share shared access signatures out here. So in an interview, if you kind of sit down, the question would be, what is the difference between access keys and the shared access signature? And in your organization or in the current project, what is the preferred method for authorization? How do you, let's say, go ahead and let someone authorize to your storage account out here? And why are you going that route? Why not an access key? What is the disadvantage of going via the access key out here as such? Yes, any questions still here that I can take?
So these access keys are like can be generated. For example, are these um, uh, like SSH generator through which we can generate the access keys? I mean, are these similar to that?
No, it's not that way. Access keys are static. These are platform controlled because your storage account is encrypted. There's something called encryption address that's going around. These are static keys that Microsoft manages at their end, and all you can do is just go here into the storage account and look
So
at this particular access key.
we
Mhm.
can only create through portal, right? Access keys.
It's not portal. You're not creating anything. It's already created for you. You're
Or
just
you
showing
can,
this. You're copying it out.
Mhm. Yeah. So you can only get it from the portal.
That's correct.
Okay. So, or
Or
When
if you
we
want to.
With PowerShell
Give me a
also we
second.
cannot do it.
Yes, you can get it. You can get it from the PowerShell. That's what I was telling you. Is that you can get it from the PowerShell provided you have at least a storage account contributor. The access that you
Okay.
need is a storage account contributor out here as such.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take. Yes, Manoj, you had a question. Go ahead, please.
Good morning,
Yes,
Kiran. Hello.
when we delete anything to the
Okay.
access space, any
Okay.
containers, we can retrieve the data.
Okay. Good question is that I have deleted a blob. Can I retrieve the blob data out here? Answer is yes. I'll also show that on how do you retrieve the blob data. That's the next concept that we're going into. But before that, I'll just take a quick question if someone has in this particular concept before I move ahead.
Okay.
Yes, someone else had a question, I think.
Hello, hello, sir.
Kiran. Hello.
Okay. Trina, just give me a second. Naveen, please go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Naveen.
How to give access to storage account and containers to IAMs?
How to give access to storage account containers to IAMs. That's something that we looked at yesterday, right? You'll have to go
Yes,
into
yes.
IAM, give access to that. And once you give the access, when you are connecting to that particular storage account or the container, please
Okay.
establish a sign in. Say subscription, say Azure, say next. And now it will ask you to sign in. Sign into your portal using the account that you have. And once you sign in,
Okay.
you can look at the containers or the storage accounts that you have access to.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Go back. Yes, Trinath, you have a question. Please go ahead.
Uh, sir, in this data are accessible in private access, public access control, sir.
Is this data accessible in public access control? No, this is a private access level. Meaning, since I have a private access, I'm generating keys, I'm generating all these things. If you have a public access, you don't have to even generate your keys. You just don't have to, let's say, generate anything out here.
Okay, okay. Uh, this is private access control, sir.
Correct. This is private access, yes.
All those things, SAS
Mhm.
and
Access keys, yes.
access keys is allowed in public access control.
No,
Private
it's
access control.
private access, yes, that's correct.
Sir, one small question. In public access controls options, in options, blob or container levels.
Mhm.
ఇప్పుడు containers container access control,
Mhm.
all those data is accessible data కదా సార్.
Yes.
ఎట్లా సార్ టోటల్ డేటా ఎట్లా కంట్రోల్ చేయొచ్చు, అదే యాక్సెస్ చేయొచ్చు సార్, ఒకసారి చెప్పగలరా?
When you
మనం
want to access your total data, you cannot access it via a browser. You will need a storage explorer. You will need a particular UI called a storage explorer to access the same.
ఓకే ఓకే సేమ్ ఎస్టర్డే క్లాస్ షోన్ ఆల్ దీస్
Mhm.
థింగ్స్ సార్.
Yes.
సేమ్ ఆల్ అన్ని సెలెక్ట్
Mhm.
చేసుకోవాలి సార్ మామూలుగా, ఇప్పుడు ఎట్లా సార్ దానికి?
No, no, I didn't get your question, Trinath. I did not really get your question. What exactly was it? When you say
ఇప్పుడు
we have to select all, what do you exactly mean by that?
ఇప్పుడు కంటెంట్ పబ్లిక్ యాక్సెస్ దానిలో మనం డేటాని ఒక్కొక్కటి దాన్ని యూఆర్ఎల్ తీసుకొని చేస్తున్నాం కదా సార్, బ్రౌజర్కి
Mhm.
వెళ్ళి
Mhm.
యూఆర్ఎల్ చేస్తున్నాం. అదే
Mhm.
అన్ని కంటైనర్ మొత్తం బ్లాబ్స్ మొత్తం కంట్రోల్ అది యాక్సెస్ చేయాలంటే ఎట్లాగన్నాను?
Say that you have the storage explorer. This is the only way that you can do it. Or you need to develop your own console applications, which will go ahead look or which will go ahead, let's say, access your entire container and expose it over the UI. So two of the options out here. You cannot directly go into the browser with that particular container URL and access it. You have to use a you have to basically use a Microsoft Storage Explorer out here as such.
ఓకే ఓకే సార్. సార్ అదే సేమ్ అదే క్వశ్చన్ సార్. బ్లాబ్ కంటైనర్ అంటే మనం బ్లాబ్ ఒక బ్లాబ్ మనం యాక్సెస్ చేయగలుగుతున్నాం సార్. అది దానికి దీనికి అదే కదా సార్,
Yes.
కంటైనర్ కి బ్లాబ్ కి డిఫరెన్స్.
Yes.
ఓకే.
Yes, that's correct.
ఓకే సార్. మళ్ళీ చిన్న స్మాల్ డౌట్. ఇప్పుడు కంటైనర్‌కి మనం సాస్ ఎట్లా అటాచ్ చేస్తామంటే, అక్కడ పక్కన సాస్ ఆప్షన్ వస్తుంది కదా! అట్లానే కదా సార్
Mhm.
సేమ్ టు?
That's correct. So if you go
ఓకే.
inside a container, you have something called as a shared access token inside a container out here.
ఓకే.
So using this,
సేమ్
you can generate a shared access.
స్టోరేజ్ అకౌంట్స్ కూడా సేమ్ ఇదే కదా సార్? స్టోరేజ్
Yes,
అకౌంట్ కూడా సరే సార్.
yes, yes. You have something called shared access signature. But where you're generating matters. Reason being, if you generate it at a storage account, all the containers inside the storage account are accessible. If you are generating it at the container, it's only that particular container it can be accessed using that particular key out here as such.
ఓకే సార్.
Okay, just a question
సార్
that is posted in the chat window.
సార్
Trina, just hold with your question. Just hold with your question. I'll address back again. We'll move with the concept and then I can come back. Okay, when we create users, we give the licenses to that particular user if they want to access the blob. When you create a user, it depends upon what kind of permission the user has. If he has something like a storage account contributor, you don't really have to give a shared access signature or the access key. He can just sign in and he can just basically go ahead and look at the particular data. But if the user has a reader access and you want to bypass it, then you can generate a shared access signature with a higher level permission, and the user can use, let's say, that particular shared access signature to go over the role that he has out there as such. That's what you can do. And one more question that someone asked is that, you know what, I deleted a blob using this particular storage account or using this particular, let's say, Explorer. A blob was deleted, took around 4 seconds. It's gone right now. Is there a way to recover it? Answer is yes, there is a way to recover it, provided you have something called as a soft delete enabled. There is a concept called soft delete. Where do you find this? When you create a storage account again. So let's say I create a storage account, and during the time of creation of the storage account, there is something called data protection, when it is telling you enable soft delete for blobs, enable soft delete for containers, enable soft delete for file shares. And by default, it is telling yes, I want to enable with a default period of about 7 days. Again, the soft delete range can be between 1 to 365, meaning you can have 7, 8, 9, 10, up to 365 days, which means that if a blob is deleted accidentally, you can go back to a period of 365 days and recover it. This is the option that you have to enable so that you can, or so that which, I mean, you have to enable while creation so that you can restore your data back again. Again, if you miss this to enable while creation, shouldn't be an issue. You can go into your storage account into something called as a data protection out here. So under something called the security, let's see, where is that? Data, let's see, data protection. So under data management, you have something called data protection, and under this particular data protection, you'll be able to toggle this out, telling that you know what, there is something called enable soft delete for blobs. You can say as of now I have a 7 days of delete retention period, which means that if a blob is deleted, I can click on show deleted blobs, and it's now telling that you know what, it's deleted. You have 6 more days to go, or you have 6 more days to, let's say, go ahead and restore it. Otherwise, it will permanently be deleted out there. So I can just scroll to the right, extreme right out here. I can click on this particular option, say undelete. What this is going to do is that this is now going to restore it back, restore the blob back. You can see the same thing in your storage explorer as well. Just refresh this out. Let's see, where's the refresh button? Okay, just refresh and you should be able to see this. Okay, and once you refresh and once you click on this particular container, not sure why this is not coming, but yes, now you're able to see the sample one image that got restored back again out here as such. So you can go ahead and also, let's say, look at this particular blob as well, or you can restore this particular blob as well. And in case your container also gets deleted, let's say from this particular admin. See, because I'm using a key right now, so I have an administrative control on all my containers. Click on this container, I can go ahead and say delete this out. I'll say this is will get deleted and all that stuff. Container got deleted. And if I go back into my account and just refresh this out, I also have my container deleted out here from the Azure portal. But I also have in my data protection something called soft delete for containers. It can be recovered up to a period of 7 days. By default, Azure is going to give you, let's say, a recovery period of 7 days out there. So if I now go into my containers, say show deleted containers out here, and now it's telling this is deleted, it is recoverable. I'll just click on this, I'll say undelete. I'll say yes, save, and this will now go ahead, give me my container back, and also all the blobs inside my container back again out here as such. But be careful, you do not have a soft delete directly for the storage account. This is not an option that is available at this point. It's only there for containers, it's only there for blobs. So if you go ahead and try to delete your storage account, if I click on delete out here, this is what it tells you. The action cannot be undone. This will permanently delete the storage account and all its contents, including your containers and everything out there. And your soft delete and everything won't come into picture because your storage account itself is deleted and you cannot undo this particular action out here as such. So please remember, you have soft delete for blobs, you have soft delete for containers, but you don't have the same thing for your storage account out there. So storage accounts and all these resources have to be protected, have to be carefully, let's say, analyzed and then protected out there as such out there. Yes, any questions on this? Any questions here?
Kiran, what is the
Mhm.
difference between licenses, like RBACs, like roles, and shared access? And also, if you give the shared access to one of the group or user, can we also revoke that whenever it's not necessary? Shared access. And
Good,
what is
good point. Is that okay? Firstly, licenses. Where did you hear this term called licenses out there? Where did you come across this particular terminology called licenses?
the administration? I saw that there is a license.
Sorry, where did you see this? I'm sorry.
In the administration, we have Active Directory, right, Kiran?
Mm-hmm.
In that
Mm-hmm.
Active Directory, I saw that, I remember that I saw in the Active Directory,
Active
we have
Directory, there's something called license.
user
This one you see.
creation. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, this is for an Active Directory out here. You have something called premium licensing and etc. This is completely for your tenant. When I create an Active Directory, or when I go ahead and let's say create right now an AD free Active Directory, there are some things like
That's
multi-factor
user
authentication.
creation document.
No. Wait a second. Please. Let me complete. Let me complete. Then you can ask me follow-up questions out there. When you talk about licenses for something called as an Active Directory, it means that right now I'm on a free license right now. I'm on a free license of the Azure Active Directory. I can also go ahead buy something called as a license. And why do you want to buy a license? You have multiple things in the Active Directory like conditional accesses. Like you want to, let's say, add a user for X number of days and have them deleted and so on and so forth. All these are controlled by something known as conditional access. And things like conditional access, there are multiple things like conditional access, multi-factor authentication, a lot of things out here that comes into picture, which you cannot achieve it using a free license. You cannot do it using a free license out here, for which we use an Active Directory premium licensing. You have multiple, let's say, features that come with Active Directory premium licensing out here. So if I say Active Directory licensing, Directory license, Azure, look at that. It's going to tell you what is the Active Directory pricing and what kind of a pricing models that you have. So you have something called a premium model, you have a premium P2 and all these things out, which will give you multiple capabilities to go ahead and let's say integrate your applications and so on and so forth. This is the licensing that is there on the Azure Active Directory out here. But when we are going ahead and doing all these things for our demos, we don't really need to, let's say, go ahead and do something called as licensing out there. Every user that you add here on your Active Directory gets a free license. So this is just to go ahead and log in. But when you say roles, what is the difference between roles and let's say shared access signature? There is no, it's not difference. These both complement each other. These are ways to go ahead and access or get an access to your resources. Again, when you talk about roles, you have something like owner role, contributor role, storage account contributor, storage account blob reader, and all these things out. So if you want a person to access to your storage account, you can either give him a role, or we can also call this as an RBAC. He can use a storage explorer and directly log in using that particular storage explorer into your storage and look at the data. However, if you don't want to give a role, or if the person already has a role and you want to bypass it, you can now generate a shared access signature out here as such. These are authentication techniques to your storage service. A shared access signature or an access key, whereas a shared access signature is a safer way to go ahead and, let's say, approach this out here as such. Yes. Does it answer your question?
Right. So, Kiran, like roles, right? These RBIs, organization wise, we can customize the roles, right? In the
Yes.
in the real time.
Yes.
Not only like the standard, right? Contributor and
Yes.
all, we
Not
can
only like
customize.
built in. Yes, you can also customize. You can also, let's say, create your own custom rules.
And that comes in administration part, Kiran.
Yes, that's a pure administration, but that's correct.
Okay.
Yes, any more questions here?
When compared
Good.
If
to
if you give to
fallback and
both
SAS,
RBSC and SAC,
Lokesh, give me a second. I'm taking a question from Manoj, so please hold on. I'll take question from Manoj first and then come back to you. Good, Manoj.
when compared to SAS and RBAC,
Hmm.
for internal users we use RBAC. For external
Uh,
users we use
mhm.
SAS. Difference
Not really.
may be varied.
Not always.
Uh,
For internal users also, you can go ahead and give us as, meaning I'm an internal
yes,
user, but I have a reader
yes,
access. Hmm.
okay, I agree with you. Giving in a SAS, we can give to any users or internal and
Hmm.
external. As per the perspective of the organizations, I'm talking about the
Hmm.
scenarios.
Yes,
And
even I am talking
we
about.
give,
Mhm. Yes, good, please.
rarely we give to the internal users, right?
You mean SAS?
Yes.
Not really. Again, as an internal user, I'm just a reader. But for one day,
Mm-hmm.
I want some contribution access on your, let's say, storage account. This is a very frequently used scenarios out there. A developer is coming down to you and they're telling that, you know what, I have a read access, but for today I am testing my application. And when I'm testing my application, I want my application to go ahead and write something, do something for which I have to do a lot of background testing. Can you please give me a SAS token? We can generate a
No,
SAS
different
token
types
and we
of.
give this out. Hmm.
Okay, got you.
Yes, Lokesh, you had a question. I can take that.
yes, yes, I have given the RBAC, I mean the role-based access,
Mm-hmm,
and also given the SAS for the same thing.
mm-hmm,
Means if I give the role-based access as a owner, and I again I have given only one or two owner means it's having all those access, right? We can create
mm-hmm,
everything.
mm-hmm,
In SAS,
mm-hmm,
we are giving whatever we need, like that.
mm-hmm.
Is it overcome?
Will it override? Yes. SAS will override
Yes.
all your permissions. Reason being, you're not signing in when you're using a SAS, right? You are or you are, let's say, logging into, let's say, your storage account Explorer as an anonymous user. You're not signing in out here. Your role will not even come into picture. SAS will just go ahead try to directly give you the access to your storage account out there. So yes, it will override your existing rules. Yes. Any more questions, guys? Okay, so one more scenario that normally interviewers ask, and one more real-time scenario what I can kind of talk about is this. See, oftentimes what happens is that as an organization, I want to maintain the security of my data. I want to maintain the integrity of my data out here. So what really happens is that the policy of my organization tells me that please don't share access keys directly to anyone until and unless it is needed. So please don't do that. Please don't share the access keys out there. Reason being, if you give an access key, you will have an administrative control. So the person who has that particular key can go ahead and can literally go ahead and let's say manipulate your data. So let's say that you have the storage account and you have a project manager who needs this access key. You go ahead and share the same, you go ahead and let's say share the same thing out there. So I am a project manager, I want to manipulate the data because I have a lot of test scenarios that I need to have. So what you do as a DevOps engineer or as an administrator is that you go ahead, give the access key out here. You generate an access key or you create the access key out here and you give this particular access key. Good enough. Now, as a project manager, I'm let's say going ahead using your access keys and I'm let's say manipulating your data. Let's say one fine day I leave the organization. I'm no longer a part of your organization. I leave this. But when I was leaving the organization, I already had, I mean, I have taken the key along with me. For some reason, I've taken the key along with me, which means that I don't have to be even a part of your Active Directory. Meaning, as and when you leave the organization, you are removed from the Active Directory, so you cannot log into the same, let's say, organization account. You cannot do all these things. But since I have a key, I don't even have to be a part of your organization. I can directly connect to your storage account out here, and I can simply go ahead use a storage explorer, access all these things. I can literally do that. This is a control, or this is a very dangerous control that I do have. So I can simply go ahead into your data. I can see what is your data. I can download your data. I can delete your data. I can do a lot of things out here. Reason being, we ask not to share keys at all. Keys are for a last resort. If you are pretty sure that you have to share a key, only then your job is getting done. Only then we go ahead and only then we go ahead and share a key out here. But let's say by mistake you shared a key, that person has left the organization. What Microsoft does give you is an option to regenerate the key. When you go into the access keys out there is something called rotate a key or regenerate the key out here. As of now, this is the key that I have, which is called B1, something like this. I can say rotate the key. It's telling regenerating the key. The current key will become immediately invalid and not recoverable. Do you want to, are you sure you want to, let's say, go ahead and regenerate this out? I'll say yes. What this is going to do is that now they are going to, let's say, give me altogether a new set of keys out there. Microsoft is going to go ahead and, let's say, give me those new keys out there as such. And what will happen to me as a developer or anyone who's using the older key is that I'll just refresh this out. And as and when I refresh this out, this is the error that I get. The old key will be immediately be, or the old key will immediately get invalid. Meaning, as a developer right now, I cannot simply go ahead, though I have the access key, I want to, let's say, delete this out. It says yes, do you want to delete? I'll say yes. And now it'll try to, let's say, delete this out, and it failed because the SAS is not there. And if you click on details out there as of your failure, it'll tell you we cannot resolve this out. Your authorization is not going inside. There's a 403 from the server. It's not really allowing you to delete it and all these stuff out there. You cannot literally do anything out here as such. So whenever a developer leaves the organization, or normally what an organization does here is that for every 90 days, we have a rotation policy in place for which, for which you go ahead and let's say rotate the keys and secure your organization or secure your data out here as such. See, but the issue is not with this. Okay, I have a lot of developers who are using the same key. Just because one developer left the organization, I went ahead and rotated the key, which means that these developers, right, who are a part of your organization still working, will also lose the access because they were using the older key out here. But this is not my concern. If a developer loses the access, they can still come down to a DevOps engineer or to an administrator, get the new key, and get started with their work. It is not that a big deal that a developer lost the access. I can give them a key. The other way, or the on the other hand, what I have is an actual application that is, let's say, listening to your data, or an actual application that is taking your data. For example, let's say that we are working for an organization called Uber, and you have an application called Uber, and this application, of course, has a code. It's running, let's say, on a code, and internally, this code is, let's say, trying to get connected to this particular storage account, grab some data out here. even this code or even this application will need an access. Let's say you have given an access key to the application. The same access key was, let's say, given to the developer also. This is the actual issue. When you do a key rotation, the reason we don't normally go for a key rotation is because of this. When you do a key rotation, all the users who have or you who are using the older key will lose their access. So they cannot, let's say, anywhere talk to your storage account out here. This is okay for me, but all your applications that are listening or all your applications that are, let's say, going ahead and grabbing the data or trying to, let's say, put the data into your storage account, even they will lose the access. If they lose the access, you as a user who's using that particular application called Uber will no longer be able to use the application because it's not able to grab the data, it's not able to do what it has to do. This is the issue. This is the real issue because this is going to cause a downtime in my application. And if it causes a downtime in my application, I as a user will no longer be interested in your application at all. If it's not Uber, I'll go for Ola. If it's not Ola, I'll go directly on a road, get my auto, and go and do whatever that I want to do because I don't want to lose my time. Which means if it causes a downtime, you lose money for your business, which is not a good sign at all in the first place. Reason being, Microsoft gives you something called as a key 1 and a key 2. This is the exact reason why the organization use two different keys out here. By the policy of the organization, what I tell is that let's share the key 1 with the developers. This is something I'm okay with. And let's reserve the key 2 for applications. Both the keys serve the same purpose. It's like a spare key. You can use key 1 or a key 2 to, let's say, talk to your storage account. Anything kind of works. So what I do right now is that for my development team, I go ahead and give the key 1. I distribute the key 1, and in case, let's say, one of the developers has taken the key 1, has left the organization, I can go ahead just rotate the key 1 without even touching the key 2. What I can do at the application end is that in the code, I can give the access key called key 2. Key 2 is something that I can give out here so that the application is not disturbed even when you do a key rotation out here. So oftentimes in an interview, no one can ask that, what, how are you making sure that these keys are protected? You can say, what, for every 90 days we are rotating the key 1. Key 2 is something that we are giving to the application so that key 2 doesn't have to be frequently rotated and the application doesn't have to undergo a downtime. Key 1 is something that we rotate for every 90 days and we make sure that the application integrity or the data integrity is actually maintained out here as such. This can be a real-time scenario, or this can be one of the questions that normally an interviewer asks you, and this is how you can tackle this out here as such. Yes, any questions till here?
Application means it can be a integration with the another tool or software or downstream.
Exactly. Anything. It
Anything,
can be
right?
an upstream application, it can be a downstream, it can be an actual UI, it can be an actual website that is actually grabbing the data. It can be a mobile application, like for example, you have installed Uber. So you can think about it as a third party, as anything out there as such.
Even for data movement, integration accounts, generic
Hmm.
accounts.
Yes.
Same. Okay, okay, thanks.
Yes, any more
Where do we have an option to change
questions?
for 90 days? As company
Where
policy,
do we
we are
have an
using 90
option?
days.
Yes, as company policy, we are using 90 days. Where do we have an option? Good question. We don't have the option. We just have something called as a rotation reminder. I'll say enable a rotation reminder out here. I can say 90 days and I can just save. So it'll go ahead and say it'll send the reminder out here. It'll just give you an email wherein it'll tell you that okay, fine, for every 90 you have to rotate this out. This is just a reminder, but you don't have an option directly on the portal to automate it out. Meaning you don't have, let's say, an option in the portal to tell that, what, please go ahead for every 90 rotate it out. You do not really have, or you do not enjoy that particular privilege. On the other hand, what you can do is that's the reason automation comes into picture. You can write your own PowerShell scripts, schedule them for every 90 or every 120 days, and then trigger it out. That will go ahead into the storage account, authorize, let's say, itself, and rotate the keys out there and update the keys wherever it wants to update it out here as such. So you don't really have the option to, let's say, rotate it for every 90 embedded in the portal. You don't have that particular option out there, but you can use an automation instead. You can come with an automation approach out there as such.
Okay.
Yes, any more questions here? What if the developer also has the key too? Then you'll have to rotate the key too. So what you do in this case is that firstly you rotate the key one, take the new key, give it to the application, and once the application is stable, once the application is working, then you rotate the key two, so that the developer will lose the access out there and the application is not disturbed. Yes, any more questions, guys? Anyone, any questions that I can take till you? Anyone, any questions that I can take till you? So what I want you all to do is this: go through the documentation of storage account. Say storage account, Azure documentation. Just go through the Azure storage account documentation. It's telling you what are, or just go to the introduction out there, tell that it's what is the introduction to the storage account out here. Look at concepts like how do you access to your storage account? What are the three ways to authorize? One being a role, the other being a SAS, the other being the access key. What is the difference between them? What is the safest option to go ahead and access this out? This is a question that you need to answer. Secondly, we'll have to start looking at things like things into the interview perspective, for which I'll go ahead and share a link with you all on from where do you want to, where do you have to, let's say, prepare for the interview questions out here. So let me go ahead, grab that real quick and send across to you all. So let's take this and let's look at this one. So I'll just send this link across to you all. You can bookmark this out. It's an open link. You can just click on this, get the access to it, and you will come down to this particular page wherein you have things like, okay, sorry, wherein you have things like what are the questions. I have given a couple of questions out here, about 7 to 8 questions out here basically that I've given. So my expectation here is not only that you look at the question, but you also look at the explanation out here, telling if I say what is a naming convention, I'm also giving a documentation link for you all, telling how exactly you will have to name your storage accounts and what exactly it does and all that stuff, and it gives you a good amount of documentation out here. Anything, for example, let's think, what do you understand the primary difference between an access key and the shared access signature? What access method do you recommend and why do you recommend that, and all those things out there. And even that has a link. So not only the Microsoft links, I've also given links to, let's say, the other external external links out there, which can help you basically go ahead and read multiple documentations out here and see how you can, let's say, improvise your knowledge out here as such. And in the coming session, in the next session, we'll be looking at something called as a life cycle management for storage account. So what I want you all to do is just go into the, let's say, documentation, say what is life cycle management, say what is life cycle management, and before you come down to the next class, please again give a read on what do you mean by a hot access tier versus a cool access tier. And the third tier that I'm about to introduce is called as an archive. Just check what are the three options, and in the next session we'll discuss about how do you manage the cost of a particular storage by looking at one particular or one specific parameter called access tier out here as such. Yes, any questions, guys? Anyone, any questions that I can take?
Yeah, I have a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
In a container, I have lot of, I mean, nearly I have 100 images I have uploaded.
Okay.
And for the each uh, images, I have to give the each, I mean, that it's a SAS, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
100 for the 100 images for the each image for the read, write. I want to give each one to each one.
Okay.
So at the time, it will take lot of time, right? How can you manage that?
It is going to take a lot of time. That's the reason we go ahead and generate a SAS at the container level. We are not giving it at the image level out there. We are asking the developer, whoever has the access or whoever needs the access, to go ahead and use the container out there. That's the reason I don't want to, let's say, generate it as a blob. That's the reason we have one more parent access level called as a container. That's where you need to generate the access key. That's where you need to generate the shared access token out there in that case. Does that answer your question? Let's see. If the developer has access to multiple storage accounts with a single key, can they be accessed? No. The developer cannot have access to multiple storage accounts using a single key. They will have to, let's say, generate individual keys for, let's say, individual storage accounts out there. So one key can only be accessed, or using one key you can only access one particular storage account here as such. Yes, any more questions here? Anyone, any more questions here? Anyone, any questions that I can take before we can close the session? All right, so the expectation for the weekend is this. Please go ahead, look at the documentation of the storage account, and also let me know on what is lifecycle management. And in the Monday session, we'll talk about what do you mean by lifecycle management, how do you, let's say, optimize the cost, and what do you really get and what kind of control you get out here as such. And then thank you guys and have a great weekend ahead. Thank you.